In today's video, I am showing off this new version of Fight Poker I've been working on, made with CMake, C++, and OpenGL. If you've seen my previous versions of this is a new updated version to be cross-platform, and is also designed to be a little more fun, having 2 rows instead of just 2 piles. But if you're new to my content, this is a game I've been working on called Fight Poker, which is a 1v1 poker game where you play hands on attack and defend to score points. And with that out of the way, let me show you what I've been up to this week. The first thing I do is have this set up here with a basic canvas displaying every card in the deck. And then I have a second version of this game running and a server that they're both connected to. And then on my computer, I can push R, B, or G, those keys, and it'll change the background color to red, blue, and green respectively. The way this works is both of the clients are running the OpenGL project, rendering all the cards, and then they're connected to the server using ASIO, and the server will tell the other client to change the color of its background upon receiving input. Then after that, I make a very simple change and render a texture to the background instead of a flat color. After that, I designed the template for where all the rows should go, and then I ported that over to the project and rendered a few cards in one of the spots, as you can see here. After that was done, I added some basic code that renders a hand to the screen. And the hand is just right now, I set it as a fixed 8 cards that it will draw. But that was quickly changed when I added this next feature, which allows you to pick cards from your hand and drag them across the screen. And as you can see, when we hover over one of the rows, the card shrinks down in size. But right now, when you let it go, it just adds it back to your hand. And the way this works is in our process input function, we detect when the user left clicks, and if it's within that bottom corner of that screen in the center, it will call the pick card function. And what that does is it looks through all the cards in our hand and figures out, based on the cursor's position, which card we picked. Then we can drop card, which right now just adds it back to our hand. And then I updated the hand's renderer code to be dynamic and just scale with the vector size instead of being fixed to 8. Alright, so the next thing we did is I needed to make it so that you could actually place cards on the board. And so the way I did this is when you get a card and pick it from your hand, if you hover your cursor over one of those spots, which is determined by the cursor's position, when it shrinks the card, if you let go, instead of adding it back to your hand, it places it on the board. And then I added some code on the board to render every card that is in an array for each row. Alright, so using that same idea, I did the same thing, but for all of the opponent's side and the river. So now cards can be added to the opponent's spot and the river, and they'll be drawn to the screen just like your cards. So once all that was finished, now most of the client stuff was done. So I went back and connected the client to the server. So now when you play cards on your side of the board, it will send that to the server, and the server will display the cards you played for the opponent, but as their opponent, and their cards are shown as your opponent. So now everything was hooked up, and you could actually see the beginnings of how this game would work out. So after that, I installed free type library into this project and added one of my old text.h header files to render text, and I got a little press enter to display on the screen, and then once you pushed enter, it would say waiting. And this is communicated through the server by a bunch of states, which are an enum class. Once all that was working, I modified the board a little and added these 2 poker chips on each side. The one on the left is for you and keeps track of your score, which I render with the text renderer, and then the one on the right is for the opponent's score. And I add in so that once both players have pushed enter and it says waiting, it will move to the game and the server will deal a bunch of cards to everyone. And then from there, the rest of the game was fairly straightforward to build. It was a lot of steps, but I won't go into them as most of them were the same from the original Fight Poker video. But you can pause here and look at this if you want to see what I did. And then once that was working, I had a playable version of the game. So it would start the game once both players push enter. You would deal your cards. The server would hide what cards the opponent played until both sides were done playing cards. And then it reveals the cards and calculates for each attack and defend. If the attack is better than the defend, the attacker scores a point, otherwise the defender stops them. And it does that for both the front rows and both the back rows. And then every turn after that, another card is added to the middle, and another 3 cards are dealt to both users. And this continues until there's 5 cards in the middle, and then that's the last round, where two times the points are scored. And from there, at the end of that round, if there is a winner, it will send the state out. Otherwise, it keeps playing until round 7, and if you're tied round 5, round 6, and round 7, it ends in a draw. And that is the game. And if you're curious on the CMake setup and the networking and the ASIO side of this, you should check out that video on screen right now where I explain exactly that. And until next time, see ya.